Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast portion of my channel. Coming up on this episode, I recently had a conversation with two podcast friends of mine of the RTWJ Podcast. That is John and Marcus. They're both part of the LGBT plus community. I recently listened to an episode of theirs and I had some, I wouldn't say issues, but I found myself responding, talking to myself in the gym. So I figured, hey, why not call them up, get them on the podcast, and let me ask them a lot of questions about how they feel being part of that community, about other things that are going on. How do they feel about issues within the community? And then offer some support and a little bit of pushback on some of the stories that I heard, with full intention coming from a good place. If all that sounds interesting to you, you're not going to want to miss this. Stick around. Marcus and John, RTWJ Podcast, used to be Real Talk with Jam. You guys changed it at some point. It's my pleasure to welcome you guys back to Hard Parking.
Thanks, Jay, for having us.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course. I recently listened to one of the episodes you guys did, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are still around because, we kind of got into this around the same time, 2019, 2020-ish, give or take 6 months. And a lot of the people that we probably communicated with from back then they're in the wind. Who knows what they're doing? And, whether you're doing an episode every week, once a month, once every other month, once every 2 weeks, it's just the fact that you're still doing it. It's awesome. So I check in with you guys every once in a while on that.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Jay. It's been a long road for us. We started during the peak of the pandemic. And like you said, podcast we check into, gone. Disappeared. So it's good to see you here and good to have us.
A lot of Instagram accounts are just the profile pic and that's it, and there's nothing left there. So it's truly is amazing that we're still here. You're right.
Last post June 20th, 2021 or something crazy like that. You're just like,
yes.
Geez.
Yeah. And their show is still online, but no new episodes. Interesting to see the changes though.
Couple ones that you followed, John, right? You had a couple favorites that you were listening to for a while, and I looked at them, and 2021, it seemed like 2021, as the pandemic started resolving, a lot of people just moved on to other things. So
that shows that we are legit. We are true podcasters.
Yes.
No, it's true, man. It's tough, man. This thing that we do is hard, and I've said it before on my show, and I'll keep on saying it, that this is not easy, whether you set up your own recordings and do it, whether you try to be a one-man show like I have here, whether you outsource editing, you still have to do it. And so it's pretty awesome you guys are there. So I recently listened to an episode at the gym, and I was telling you guys earlier, there's a few things that I want in a podcast that I think what makes a podcast worth listening to. And one of them, you guys check all the boxes, but the one that really intrigued me of talking to you guys on this one was I wanted to be part of the conversation as I'm sitting there. We're standing or walking on the treadmill. Fast though, guys. Don't judge. Want to lose some weight here. And I thought
hey, we hear you.
So John, you shared a story, and this was the July 5th episode. It's called Pride Month 2023. Pride Gets Personal. And this was on the heels of, I think the episode released, I guess it was July 5th, but Pride Month was starting to wrap up, and you both decided to share some very personal stories, which I appreciate. So as I'm listening to John's story, I have all these, I'm like, okay, well, I understand that. And I identify with that. And, but, and then as I listen to Marcus's story, because Marcus came from a slightly different, his story was a little different. And, what I'm talking about here for the listeners is, they both came out. John came out when he was, technically, I guess you officially came out in high school, but, you had issues with kids in elementary and middle school. And then Marcus, you waited till you were in your 20s. And so your guys' experiences were a little different. And it's funny when you were saying that, Marcus, as you were explaining it, but my experience wasn't, I finished your sentence when I was walking across the gym. Different. I go, yes, different, But I had a lot to respond to. And That's why we're here today.
Yeah, it's both of us together combined. I mean, Marcus, his story is interesting because I knew Marcus years before he decided to come out. So, and I was there. I'm like, hey, buddy, it's all right. Be yourself, but I never pushed it with him. So, to see his experience and see him go through that growth, development, try to become the person he is today was just eye-opening. So I'm very proud of him.
It took a long time. It was a very slow process, even just saying the word sometimes of I'm gay. It's like, I would say in other ways, kind of dance around the official. It right. Really took a long time to accept. So yeah, it was definitely different than, and like you referenced, John's story is so intense. Just what he went through, some of the trauma he just experienced, way different than me coming out as a working adult, past that stage of my life of school and all that was definitely different.
Sure. Totally. John, with yours, I can identify in certain ways. And one of the things as we kind of step through some of the stuff is our experiences in life, our perspectives, it's all relative to what we've gone through and what we've seen. And there's things that you went through that it sounds like you definitely felt that you were alone, and you weren't as alone, I guess, holistically as you may have thought, but your surroundings kind of dictated, what you were thinking at the time. One of the things that you did say is, and I'm not trying to invalidate anything because I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Of course.
Yes. And my goal is to let you know you're not alone. And I feel like it is okay. And sure, it's easy for me to say sitting over here, but I think that in today's society, nothing's easy, right? But overall, it's more socially acceptable to finally actually be yourself. And I don't know, as a kid, because kids are mean, right? But, one of the things you had said is one of the hardest parts, and you skipped around a little bit, but, is loving someone you can't have. And you did say, well, obviously that's, you're in school and we all think we're in love with somebody, but just the point of, being able to come out and tell someone how you really feel about them, out of fear of, what would happen, and out of fear as you got older through your later teens, how kids treated you when you're in elementary and middle school. I would say that you came out, you're younger than we are. I forgot exactly how old you are. How old are you?
I'm 30.
30. Okay. Yeah. You're young.
Yeah.
You're a baby, right? I'm 47, dude. And
dude, you're young too, man.
I got 2 grandkids, man. But that's great. You came up in an era that, like, I don't know how I would have survived, to be honest with you. And, social media, a lot of us, we sit around and we say, damn, I don't know how these kids do it. They find a way to do it, but boy, it sure is hard in today's world with all the cyberbullying, not just regular bullying. In our age, we would get bullied a lot as kids for anything. But once we came home, we never had to see it again, which is why kids never wanted to go back to school, right? But in your era, and kids younger and people a little older, not to carbon date myself, if you have a smartphone, you have it. You go home, you have a computer, it's still there. So, I mean, props to you for getting to where you're at. I couldn't even imagine, but you had said that, you were bullied. You had a really good friend you weren't even, attracted to, but once you told, and I could be, go ahead and, correct me if I'm wrong, but once you told him that you weren't into girls, stopped messing with you and probably, started to bully and grab some people and kind of come at you a little bit.
Yeah. It, a lot of that, when I think back to it, and that statement you mentioned where it says, the hardest thing is having or loving someone you can't have, right? And a lot of that really resonates with me, as in I couldn't love myself. And I couldn't find that love that I had for myself because, just for quick context, the friend of mine was pretty cool, right? Talked to me about girls. He was going through struggles with a crush, typical kind of stuff, typical boyish stuff. We were talking about it, hanging out, stuff like that, conversations. And though I was able to give him advice, I wanted to be true to him. And I said, hey, you know what? Like, I can help you. I can guide you in directions. I can give you pointers on how to talk to people, this and this and that. But I don't know how to fully answer these questions because I don't have the same attractions that you have. And, I thought it was appropriate. I said, hey, you know what? Let me just give him some background so that he understands why I may not be able to answer all questions. And I thought this is the perfect opportunity. There was nothing sexually attached to it because I was a kid. I was in middle school, high school. I knew nothing of anything else but just being myself and just trying to offer suggestions. But it changed. I told him, completely changed. Took me out of his life, brought other people into it. And that's when the hardest part of bullying started. And it was difficult because it was in the transitional period of your life when you're still going, you're growing, you're going through puberty, your body is changing, you have hormones, your thought process changes, critical thinking is being developed. I was just a mess. So to try to handle that while growing up was crazy in itself, but it was progress, a lot of progress. And, who I am today came of what I experienced during those times.
Yeah. And in listening to that, one of the reactions that I had as I was working out at the gym, because I'm not gay, but, I've had some of those same challenges. And that's where, feeling, hopefully coming away with, not being afraid to be yourself and not feeling like you're alone, which is easier to say at that time. But, I was adopted. My parents don't look anything like me. My brother doesn't look anything like me. He was also adopted. We went to an elementary school in Texas. I had a lot of friends, had a lot of haters. And you like people and they don't always like you back. And I know that as an adult now, but I think there's three things that happen regardless of your sexual orientation. When you decide to tell someone that you actually like them. And I think I'm not trying to oversimplify this at all, but I think it's a risk. And the closer you are to someone, the scarier it is. Because either they could like you back, right? Probably less likely in your position, but it could happen. B, you land in the friend zone. Or C, they just never talk to you again. And everybody goes through those struggles and it fucking sucks. You can curse on my show too, by the way.
Okay.
And it's, I never knew who I was. There's like no record. I don't know who my real father is. And again, I don't look anything like my parents. I was embarrassed at times to be seen with my own parents because they didn't look like everybody else's. I was fortunate where I had friends. I had good friends, but, I still never quite knew who I was. And I've kind of carried that hole for most of my life, even as a mature adult. There was a girl that I liked in middle school, and she was one of the popular girls, of course, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's the worst.
That is the worst because they're so great. You just look up to them and it's just like they're there.
I'm this unknown kid. And so, I forgot how she found out, but I didn't tell her. I was terrified. I don't know if I dropped a note in her locker, do you like me? Yes or no, or whatever, the kids do. But this was middle school, so that's probably cool. Not. Right.
Yeah.
But somehow it got to her, and I won't call her name out because we were all kids. But her, days later, I received, it must have been in my locker. You know how we used to fold up papers and tuck them in, these nice little things. And I opened up and it's
through
through the slot. And I opened it up and it was covered front to back full of, how people sign your yearbooks? It was like that. And it was filled with nothing but notes of people just being mean. And, somebody had told you once before that they hope you kill yourself, shit like that was on there. And I was a sixth grader at the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, I knew who they were. Kids aren't smart enough not to sign their name. But I didn't take it to the principal. I probably should have, but no one wants to be a rat. And
absolutely. Yeah.
So I have these two or three pieces of paper full of all these people that were just saying these mean, hateful things to me. And all I did was like somebody. I did the same thing to somebody years later, some girl like me. And, I got in trouble for it, as I should have, right? But it's, that's when I learned that lesson the hardest, that people don't, and sounds shitty, but it's just one of those hardcore things. It's like, I can like someone, they may not like me back. Someone's going to like me, I'm probably not going to like them back. And going through high school, you saw the people that were with their boyfriends, girlfriends, and you wanted to be part of that. And I identified with that as well, because I had a high school girlfriend, of course, but there was people that there was one girl that I was just crazy about. And then there was a couple of girls that were just crazy about me. I went to prom because I couldn't find a date. And of course, there was somebody out there that would have gone with me, but, it's not who I wanted to go with.
Oh, man. Just like me.
Yeah.
I had the one. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want y'all. I want the other one.
Yeah. And I my prom night, we were at the Anatole Hotel in Dallas, and I was hanging out late. And I remember walking through the hotel lobby with my tuxedo and my Air Jordans on. And everybody was hanging out with someone. I don't even remember how I even got home.
Dude.
But,
wow.
I was just lonely. And, I'm happily married now, but that speaks to, I got made fun of a lot of it as a kid for no reason at all. This is kind of breaking news to probably all my listeners, unless they've heard me on other people's podcasts. But I made the mistake when I was in 6th grade, maybe I was in 7th grade, telling a friend of mine named James, if you're out there, maybe you're dead by now, but I told James that I had a creepy uncle. And, that got around school. And so that didn't make my high school life very well either. And there were times when I remember standing, because again, keep in mind, I didn't know really who I was. Nobody wanted to date me, none of that shit. And I remember standing in the kitchen crying with a knife to my stomach. Like I was that unhappy. And that was in middle school. Fast track through high school, I was in a really bad period. I kept getting in legal trouble because, once I graduated, I just started wilding out, 18, 19 years old. I didn't give a fuck if I lived till I was 25, 26. I wasn't going out picking fights, but I was making a lot of stupid mistakes. And I tried to OD on mini thins, those pills.
Yeah.
In my hot tub. And then I got out and called some of my friends. And Joyce and Kite came over, in Garfield. It's a funny name, but that's when you find out who the real ones are. Because, you have all these people around you when times are good, but as soon as there's any controversy, whether you're coming out, or you're getting in any sort of trouble, the ones that leave you were never there to begin with. And, it sucks to lose people like that, but those that are by your side are always going to be by your side. And so I say all that to say that, it's shitty what you had to experience. And, I've had similar things. I can never experience exactly what you experienced, but, is it the fat kid in school? Is it the black kid in a white school? Is it the white kid in the black school? The girl in the school full of boys, the boy in the school full of girls? Because at the end of the day, kids suck. They really do. And I know you had mentioned, there's a lot of people say just let kids be kids. Yes and no, because kids suck. They really do. And we all know it, right?
It's true. It's true. The best job of my life was working with kids, but man, would they fucking get me with some stuff. I used to come to work and I'm like, hey, your hair's not combed. I'm like, gee, thanks. Like, I know.
Oh, there's a guy, Luan. He was always telling me to comb my hair because my parents left my hair looking like it was on fire all the time. And hey, comb your hair. That's all he used to say to me. He's an older kid. Hey, comb your hair. I'm like, what? But we all have to go through bullshit, and it's not okay. It's not okay. But none of us are really truly alone. And if we make it past that part in our lives where we're at our lowest, then there's nothing left to do but grow from it. And so I wanted you to know that you are not alone in your journey. I've had experienced similar things, and I'm here just like you are now.
Yeah, and I truly appreciate that, because that's the focus that I try to give people, is that the stories are not just my story, Marcus's story,
right?
Jay's story. It's the stories of people that have gone through stuff that no one knows has happened. And you yourself wanted to be a kid, you wanted to be a teenager, you wanted to experience what we think was being a teenager, what we think was being a kid. But we were bombarded, whether you were gay, whether you were straight, black, white, Mexican, whatever you were still struggling through those issues. So it's not just a gay issue, it's people issues. It's things that as people we've gone through. And that's the main focus, right? Is that these LGBTQ rights are not indoctrination. Nonetheless, they're not. They're just experiences of what we as people have gone through, because kids do suck. Man, one time this kid, I was working at the school with like 6th graders, and I turned around to face the whiteboard. He grabbed this burrito, launched it at full speed. It hit me in the back of the head, just beans and rice flying everywhere, man. And I wanted to turn around and be like, you fucker. Like, I said, man, you, woo. But,
that video would have got 20 million views if you would have turned around and did that, by the way.
That was like, 12, 13 years ago. So,
yeah,
it wasn't that popular then. But it's just, you see, people go through that, even as adults. And you brought a great point. It's growth. It's development. It's who we become.
For most of us, right? Because a lot of kids, it's learned behavior, and you guys have mentioned grooming. You can be groomed to hate fact, right? But absolutely. A lot of times the kid could have the best parents in the world, but a shitty friend group. You always have that group. There's a one or two alpha bullies in a group of bullies. And I guarantee you one or two of those kids is actually a good kid. They're just too chicken shit to say no. And, how do we fix that? I don't know if we can, because kids suck. Kids are mean, but until, they know it's okay to kind of stand up. But I think in our society, again, whether you're gay or whatever else, it's going to be an issue. And I don't know what it's going to take to get past that.
A lot of work. I mean, like you mentioned, I've always been a firm believer of it's just human behavior. We just, as creatures of habit, creatures who, we see things that are different than us. And it's just habit. We don't understand. A lot of it truly comes from not understanding. So how do we fix that? Maybe by making people more transparent, offering education, offering more support, like we don't have to tie people down and be like, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be. Or even with me, I don't expect people to be like, you have to respect me for being gay. It's not what we're asking. We're asking just for respect for being me, right? Respect for being John, respect for being Jay, respect for being Marcus. That's literally what the focus is, but because we just get caught up in humanity, right? It's the best part.
Well, I want you to try not to be too afraid to be who you are, because who you are is who you are. And I know and Marcus, you had actually said this, where sometimes you have to turn it off. Sometimes you have to kind of just, you didn't say this, but I wrote down, sometimes you just have to be part of the scenery. And, I do that too. You get around a bunch of people, you don't know them, or you don't know if they're cool or not. So I just don't say shit to anyone. I just kind of like absorb myself into the crowd. But otherwise, I think we know as adults kind of when we can be ourselves, but I don't know how many of us are truly ourselves from day one. There are a lot of people that are like that, of course, but I'm not one of them, certainly.
I mean, hey, I can't say that I am 100% of the time either, right? John, would you say you are?
No, but no. Jay, Marcus is great though. I mean, he truly is what I like about Marcus is that he's genuine and true to himself at most times, right? Like he's understanding, when certain conditions may be not the best to be yourself, but he truly is someone that from the beginning, as I met, he was true and genuine to himself. And, it takes a lot. It takes a lot because that's for everybody as well, right? Like you said, sometimes group parties, you're like, hey, you know what? This party's pretty cool, but I'm not going to talk about my fascination for Harry Potter. I'm not going to talk about my love for Disneyland. I'm going to hold that back, right? Or
hey, you guys like Dungeons and Dragons? Who likes Dungeons and Dragons?
Right. Exactly. You drive a Civic? Nah, man, Civic is trash. Stuff like that. I mean, it's happened to me before. So, you're right. You just got to gauge your audience, It's like a whole big show. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think the older you get, the more you realize that because, as mean as kids are, the younger the kids are, the more innocent the kids are. And I think if you get around a 4 or 5-year-old, everything they say, especially now, comes from home or that iPad that they're glued to. Back when we all grew up, it came directly from home and nowhere else. It didn't come from, Timmy. It came from mommy and daddy and uncle and Bigot Joe and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Bigot Joe. That's a good one.
I just made that up. Yeah.
That's a good one.
You guys can use it if you want.
Yeah.
We might have to steal that. That's great.
I'll tell my uncle that because he's a bigot. So
the Bigot Joe.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one.
TikTok video you'd mentioned. I haven't seen it. I don't do the TikTok machine. I call it TikTok machine on purpose to make me sound like an old man. But
really did. You nailed that, man.
TikTok the TikTok machine. Yeah. I don't do that TikTok machine, that TikTok stuff. Social media sucks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I stopped and all I did was read Twitter. I don't even really get involved in Twitter, but when I would see a video and I'd scroll through the comments, even if it was a video about a dog kicking a soccer ball, at some point those comments turn nasty and mean.
Absolutely right.
Like YouTube comments. And your eyes were just blown out by some of that shit on that TikTok video you guys had mentioned with a daughter crushing over a teenager. But it doesn't surprise me because people are weird, man.
Yeah, I was taken aback because we are so hyper focused on issues that, of course, are important, right? Children are important. The innocence of children, the ability to give someone, knowledge that they may not understand is difficult. But this video, it was this little girl. I mean, had to be 4 or 5 years old, crushing over this. I'm assuming a teenage boy, probably 17, 18. And
disgusting.
The dad is just whoever was behind the camera was just so supportive and it just really made me feel so bad because I've worked with kids and I told Marcus and I tell everyone on the show that if it's me or it's a kid, I'm going first. My life is gone. I will, do my absolute best to the end to fight for kids. And it's just people were saving the video. People were commenting on the video like, oh, so cute. Oh, she's going to learn. Oh, it's just honestly stuff that was disgusting because I couldn't comprehend how that was happening. And then we come to drag queens reading books in the library and it's all hell breaks loose, right? And that's where I was like, man, like how? That's a child.
That's what social media has done. I mean, that's the thing with
it's social media. It truly is social media. You nailed it.
It's a double-edged sword. Like social media, you have the ability to have such community with people, right? Whether whatever topic it may be. It can be LGBTQ rights. It can be something very serious. It can be like us loving Disneyland and interacting with people who love Disneyland and want to share secrets about Disneyland. You have such positivity that can come from it, and at the same time, like you just said, Jay, the absolute weirdest stuff that's out there just spreads like wildfire. Just like that video that we were talking about, like many other things that you've probably seen and heard out there. It has such great benefit and also at the same time can spread such ridiculous shit too. So it's just like, it's complicated. It's for sure complicated.
Yeah. And I don't know what the fix is. Is it, just get rid of all social media? That would take us back 10 years. But you're right. It's so polarizing and there's no gray area. It's either people are nuts or people love dogs.
Exactly. Really, exactly. You're absolutely right.
Dogs, I did a paper on social media and how it's so beneficial to what as a society we can do, right? For example, the fires in Hawaii are devastating. And thanks to social media, we can see the impact of people, their lives, donate, help, assist, right? Those are the benefits. Those are the beauty of social media. On the other hand, we see people that have, taken their own life because of bullying, that people that have been accused of stuff they haven't even done. But social media, it's just a two-way street, but completely different in many areas.
It's the court of public opinion. Marcus,
Yeah.
what are some of the challenges that you had coming out later? You mentioned some of them, but I would say that if my wife and I got a divorce, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do, because I am terrified of going out there and trying to date amongst all these kids in these apps. And I know I sound even older than I did, 10 minutes ago. I can't imagine
Just that
coming
word
out
kids.
and then starting over.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is just like you've mentioned, it's challenging. I've gone out to many bars, clubs. I've been LA, San Diego, Vegas. I've gone out there and checked things out, especially since I've been out openly. And it is hard. Look, so John's 30, I'm 31. All right. So I'm not 18, 19, 20, like some of these beautiful kids are, right? They're all beautiful. They're all thin. They're all energetic and wonderful. They're out till 4 in the morning. Yes. I'm going to happy hour. Yeah, I'm at happy hour getting the 2-for-1 specials. I'm going to bed thinking about, I got a meeting in the morning. I'm past that point, like that prime of excitement and being out in the world and being out at a club or at a bar and ready to meet people and party and have fun. I'm not at that stage in life. So to kind of be out in the open how I am now, it's tough just to, at times, I guess, I don't want to focus too much on regret, but there is kind of a cost of, well, when I was younger, I wasn't out. I wasn't able to enjoy kind of being out in the, gay culture, gay community. When I felt younger, better about myself, I'm now in this kind of position later in life where I don't feel like I'm prime. Right.
Yeah.
And I know with the kids,
wait till you're 40.
It just goes downhill by the day.
Being old. I'm like, buddy, you're 31.
Yes. But you still face that challenge, especially you go out at night and you're seeing all the young kids, all the young gays are out there. They're just ready to go for it.
How do they look at us?
They're like, oh, there's the dad right there.
Yeah, because I pull out my phone and I hold it in front of my face. I think
your uncle's here.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I pull out my phone in front of my face and they just all stare at me like, what are you looking at? I said, well, sorry. That's what?
Yeah. And I'm talking about, I want a well drink, and they don't know what that is. They just know what the prettiest, most beautiful, tastiest drink is on the menu. They don't know what the specials are. It's just, I'm not at their level, their caliber, and to be kind of exploring being openly gay at my age is just a little more challenging. It really is. It is tough. Just like you said, if you were to divorce your wife and go out there, you're not 19, 20. You're not going to get the attention from the crowd of a 19, 20-year-old. And it just makes it a little more challenging. Self-esteem wise, I'm older. I have my esteem. I'm like you've said, I'm an adult. I have some concept of myself and my worth, but still, it would be nice to be the center of attention, but I'm not going to be compared to some of the beautiful people that are there. So it's just tough not to know that I'm not going to be at the top of the group when I'm out. And it's just the barriers are a little more, the opportunities are a little less. I still don't regret, there's obviously no regret. Still feels great to be out open now. It's kind of that whole thing of why waste another day? Why waste another minute in hiding? But there's still that feeling of, I wish I would have done it sooner and had to have more, life experiences than what I have now. So you kind of go back and forth with kind of some of the regret, and then also still having to be positive, embrace what's good about being out now versus waiting another 5 to 10 years. So it's challenging. I guess that's kind of the summary, more or less, of it.
Yeah, you had brought up community. And so that's one of the questions, because I feel like there would be kind of a civil war within the gay community. And it almost became, well, you kind of get it because maybe you didn't come out soon enough, or you didn't experience some of the things that other people experiences, or maybe you're not gay enough, or you don't drag, so you're not this, you're not that. Talk to me about that, because
sure,
to me, I can see how that would happen because that's just how people are. People are like that in sports. Like, when did you become a fan of this team? Oh, were you born there? Oh, you're just a bandwagoner. I was like, no, I can like the team, whether I just started liking them last year or like,
Exactly.
Yeah. Talk about those.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll start, and then John, you take over after. Just kind of a little bit about, we don't really share a lot of like what we look like on our show. We don't have a lot of pictures of us. Just to give you kind of a quick description, and John,
we'll show you at the end of the show. We'll give you
fill in as you like to. You fill in with your little comments, but essentially, I am a larger build, half Hispanic, half white. I have tattoos on my arms, so I have all black ink. I tend to wear darker colors. I am not maybe, especially when like maybe I go to LA, for example, you get into like West Hollywood where you have maybe some members of the gay community maybe are a little more, if you want to say, for lack of a better term, flamboyant, wear very bright colors, maybe, do makeup, other things, right? They're very into having a specific appearance. And then I show up and I look like how I do. I look like some scary, thug, basically, and I'm there at a gay bar looking like that. You get the looks. You do get the looks. You get the especially if I'm not wearing name brand designer, whatever the case is.
Right.
Every bar is different, every situation is different, but there is like sometimes a standard of, if you truly belong in this place, or this is the place where you're supposed to be, you're going to look this way or act this way. And I am just the anomaly of everything. I just violate all the rules. You get the stares, you get the looks, you get John, you'll be able to elaborate more too on this, but you get that feeling of, ew, you don't actually belong here. What are you doing here? You get those facial expressions, you get that kind of attitude from people. And it's horrible. It's horrible just because I don't fit in a specific place, the definition of what I'm supposed to look like. So even, we talk, people talk about, my gay card, whatever you want to, people say, speak like that.
Right.
My gay card doesn't work everywhere for some groups, unfortunately. So I go through that. And yeah, I've dealt with that where people just look at me like, yeah, you're out of place. Doesn't matter. Even if you're gay, whatever the case is, you don't fit our group. You're not our style. So
you really nailed it. Interesting point. Marcus and I are both in Southern California, right?
Yeah.
We're specifically in Orange County, which is south of LA County. And, LA has a very prominent neighborhood for, I guess, LGBTQ and the community, West Hollywood. I was young. I went there, in my teens, which shouldn't have been in there, but I was 16, 17 years old in the club.
Hello.
And, having a field day. But it's so different there. It's so different than Marcus and I, who don't, quote, fit within the community, don't go there. We go other places. We go to San Diego because it's much more friendly. People are much more accepting. And it's so hard to say that because we are in a community that is looking for acceptance, right? And love and support. Yet within our own community, we degrade each other. There are bigots. There are people who are racist. There are people who shame others. There are people who haze others. There are people who just are mean. And it's like, why? Why are we like this? We should be here to support each other. But Marcus and I walk in somewhere and they just both, they stare at us because, I'm wearing like a Nirvana t-shirt and some jeans and like a backwards hat. Yeah. It's just like everyone, like you said, you truly nailed it on the head, with that experience of people, right? Whether, you're marginalized or minority or whatever the case is, or just anybody, frankly, someone is not going to like you. Someone is not going to accept you. For example, I love the Angels. That's my baseball team. I'm here in Orange County. That's what I grew up with. That's what I know. My family grew up with, right? Yeah, right. But see, I go into LA, right? And it's like an LA Dodgers game, and it's like, man, just let's have some cool, like you said, poor guy. I like that. That's fun. But no, my car gets egged. I get pushed into the crowd. My jersey gets ripped off my back.
Poor little guy.
Come on,
dude, sports fans are crazy, man. Especially, there's always a fight in the stands of an NFL game. The 49ers versus somebody. There's, it's always like.
I know we have a really bad stadium. Come on. I know it's a crappy stadium. I get it. But,
is there.
Just the example, right? People just do that.
Are you ever, because you like. we all want to support our communities, right? Whatever our communities are, regardless. I want to support my Las Vegas Raiders community,
Right.
But is there ever that fan where you just look at him, you're like, Jesus, you're kind of crazy. Like, I support you as a fan, but you're making me look bad. There's got to be some of that going on.
I'll get into this. I think the best example, and I was just talking to John recently about this, is I'm going to go back to the gay bar scene. Okay. And I know, because one thing John was talking to me about this, he observed that I tend to really get along well with bartenders at some of the bars I frequent. So I have some that I have one I frequent in downtown LA. And then when I go to Vegas, I have one that I frequent. I usually go to Vegas, every 6 to 8 weeks, trying to go every 4 weeks now. I love Vegas. So
the bartender's not a bad person to have a great relationship with, by the way.
So here's what happens. So here's the thing. Why does that happen? Why do I have that kind of, I guess, relationship with them or that attitude? Because I'll be sitting there and here comes the drama queen. Sorry, I'm being a little, using the names here, but
go for it, man.
It is who comes in and, oftentimes, sorry, let's throw the stereotypes. Often very pretty looking or think they're pretty, which they're not, but that's my opinion. But they come in and they act demanding. They are rude. They are very picky with their drink. For example, they get a drink. Maybe they're not sure they really like it or not. They don't really know what they're doing. They ask for a recommendation. Yeah. They act very demanding the entire time. And I, like in downtown LA, for example, I have seen it many times where if they don't have everything perfectly, they don't tip.
Yeah. It's got to be really bad for me not to tip. Like egregious.
Yeah. But these are, I will be with these bartenders that I have been with, that I kind of am familiar with, and they do a great job, right? They're very friendly. They're good with their regulars. And you have this, these people come up and they act that way and then they don't tip. And you see the face of the bartender, just the despair, especially if you're only working a couple-hour shift and you get a crowd of people that are just acting entitled. They're obnoxious and they're disrespectful. And it's like, what are you guys doing? Why are you acting like this? Again, I think the whole point is like, right, we're talking about how even with pride and things, it's us against the world, this and that, right? The world's attacking us. Here we are. This is a fellow member of the LGBTQ community, and you're treating them like trash.
Right. Yeah.
Complete trash. You're disrespecting them. This is someone that's providing you with a service, and they're trying their best, and you're being rude. And they act like, I see it all the time, and it's just heartbreaking. It's like, already we have to fight and, try and have a space, right? Gay bars are not on every corner.
Right.
They're few and far between. We have the space to be, feel safe, feel accepted. And then we're acting like this in what's supposed to be a safe space.
Yeah.
We're acting like fools. It's like, come on.
It's like,
I mean, that's an example. That's probably the best one I can think of, is just visit a bar and find the one that acts up. And it's horrible.
That's the gay version of Chris Rock, right? What white people don't like about black people, black people really don't like about black people. So,
I mean, you nailed it on the head, man. I mean, you want a vodka soda with no vodka? I'm like, just ask for the soda.
Right.
It's like, why make a big old deal? Just I'm like, really? Like, I don't like it. Just tangent. People go to the bar and like, I want something fruity. I mean, come on, just choose a base. You're gonna go with the well. What do you want? Choose the juice is right there. Just come on.
Yeah.
I don't know. And they do get the man.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want cranberry. Why did you? And it's just, I've seen it.
Yeah. What are we doing?
All the time.
Why are we acting? Yeah. It bothers me a lot. That's why I always try and, not even, it's just a matter of being respectful to them, treating them well. That's why I always tip well at a gay bar, just because I see what they go through. And again, it's like, this is our community and we're acting like this toward each other. And it just pisses me off. It
Good
does.
for you, man.
So, yeah.
Let's go to some questions here.
Sure.
What are your guys' thoughts? So you had mentioned when you guys started that episode, it was right on the heels of a couple Supreme Court rulings, and you were going to talk about it. but you haven't talked about it as of your episode that just came out.
Work in progress.
Okay. So we don't have to get into the weeds of that, but I think they had ruled against someone not wanting to, I don't know, make a website or some shit for a gay couple. But I think, and I could be misspeaking here because I didn't dig as deep as I usually do, but ruling that it's okay to refuse service. I have mixed feelings on that. What are your thoughts on that? I have my cousin's also gay. Actually, my favorite cousin's actually Eddie and Jose. And they had put up posts. So, I know exactly where they're at with that. But, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one because I'm a firm believer of, as a private business, you have the ability to serve the needs of your customers as best you can, right? Like for example, if you go into a store that sells motorcycles, don't expect to buy a car there. That's what they specialize in, right? But what I don't like is when decisions are filled or are fueled by hatred or a lack of understanding. I say this I say this many times and I say it again. LGBTQ rights are not indoctrination.
Right.
We're not asking for people to forcefully believe and forcefully, whatever the case is. In that particular case, the language and the way the case was brought up and the way the case was handled was not the best way to do that. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we don't know behind the law and behind the process of the case, right? And stuff that happened that led up to the
most
decision.
likely, yep.
But at face value, I just think it's not cool because I feel as if that person was using their decision based on hate and based on a lack of understanding. If you want to refuse customers, that's fine. You can just say, hey, you know what? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make that cake. I'm not going to be able to make that order just because I don't have the supplies or whatever the case is. But I just think that it could be a two-way street because at the same time, okay, she might be Christian. She might be doing it not out of hate, right? She might love these people. She might accept them, but she just might not feel comfortable because that is her prerogative. That's her decision. And I as well support that as, that's fine if you don't want to do it. That's fine if that's not within your comfort level. But can we do it in a way that's more respectful? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that. Because you don't have to believe everything. You don't have to do it. That's okay. I will respect your religion. I will stand by you. I will fight for you in your religion. Just find a way to be a little more, I guess, respectful, so to speak.
I mean, like in that case, let's say the cake example, like you brought up, John. You have, right, you're in a bakery and you decide, hey, I'm not comfortable, like he said. However, there's another, for example, you could say, hey, there's another place down the street that is also really, my friend or whatever the case is. You have maybe either a recommendation or an alternate. Again, not making about, I'm not going to help you people. I'm not going to do anything with you people. It could be approached differently of, it's not comfortable for me, but hey, there's a place down the street. Maybe try them. They're also very highly rated. See if they might be able to assist with it. I recommend them. Try that. I don't know. Just like you said, John, you don't have to make it a big statement of hate when, even if you're not comfortable, you can still end it on a positive note, on a respectful note. I think the thing is, even like John and I with kind of our platform, our view overall, it's about respect in the end. It's about respecting people as human beings, treating people decently as human beings, even if you're not in line with, lifestyle, whether it has to do with, say sexual orientation, whatever the case is. That's my thing, is just treat me still as a human, even if you can't necessarily go along with me. Yeah. Don't degrade me in the process, even if you can't, assist me, whatever the case is. Just, I still want to feel like I'm a human being. I'm respected as a human being.
But see, our community, I also think that our community has to understand that as well. And I know it may seem hard to say that, but our community has to understand that not everyone is still going to be supportive. And that's okay, because you can respect people still and not have to be supportive. And our community needs to get that. Hey, you know what? There are some businesses that may not best serve my needs. For example, if you just have, if you go to a restaurant and you're allergic to certain ingredients, you're not going to purposely go to a restaurant that serves only those ingredients, right? You're going to find alternates. And unfortunately, right, but that's kind of the case, right? We have to just find that kind of tune. So that's what we think about that. It's hard because we get hate mail for that. While you guys are supposed to fully support and you guys are supposed to fully embrace your culture and your identity, we are embracing this. We are supporting.
So you get that kind of hate mail.
Find these, we have to find those balances. We have to find that agreement because we're all people. We are all still learning. And if we expect people to like and love us, we got to give them the chance to at least learn.
Yeah.
And at least try their best. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm kind of torn on that. I think businesses should have the right to refuse service. They all have the right. It's written on their door, but there better be a damn good reason. And otherwise, I think they open themselves up to litigation. You can't just, if Marcus, you go in there, John, you go into a place and want something and they just say, I don't serve your kind here. What the fuck does that mean? Right.
Absolutely.
If you go in there and you're dumping over tables and shit like that, and you're yelling and screaming and belligerent and you're drunk, then of course we don't serve your kind here. So I think there needs to be, and I don't know, I haven't looked at the details, or I'm sure there's a lot of outcry, but again, I don't know the details of what transpired in that specific case. But I think they should have the right to refuse service to anyone, but it better be a damn good reason.
Absolutely.
That's it. I mean, you really truly nailed it. We're not going back to times where people were segregated. Right. That's not what we want. We don't want that. That was the horrible. We don't want to go there. And I'm afraid that little steps like this, little issues like this will somehow, some way translate into bigger legislation, into bigger issues, into bigger things that we have to deal with. And not only will affect LGBTQ members, but will affect minorities, marginalized groups, people suffering through poverty, right? It just translates into this huge issue. And that's what I'm afraid of. So this case is important,
right?
Nonetheless, because it does lead to something that can open many doors and not good ones either.
Wonder if it's contingent on on the states. Another question is, at what age do you guys think it's appropriate to educate children on differences? Because I'm pretty sure kids aren't watching Sesame Street anymore. Yeah. There's no more Mr. Rogers, and that's what Mr. Rogers did, right? It's So where does that come from? And when I was coming up, we had sex education class, but that wasn't until we were in middle school. And I don't know if that'd be the appropriate thing. I don't even think they even had that anymore. But what age do you think that's an appropriate conversation to have with children?
Shoot.
So I'll start, and then I know John has a couple of thoughts on this. So in terms of, I think there's two issues. So I think there's awareness of the presence of LGBTQ members of our community versus probably what you're more getting into in terms of actually discussing the processes from a sexual education standpoint. So when it comes to awareness, my opinion is pretty much LGBTQ individuals are part of society. So, acknowledging, for example, that one child may have a mother and a father, another child may have two fathers, another child may have two mothers. That's a conversation. I mean, children are very aware and attentive of the world, especially when they're young. Normalizing that from just a kind of family structure perspective, I think starts very young. John, I'm going to let you talk a little more because you had some thoughts, maybe more on the sexual education perspective. So at least from that side, I think it's important because here's the thing, here's the reality. Regardless of belief systems, ideologies, LGBTQ individuals are part of society. Children someday, when they grow up, are going to have to work with people who are transsexual, gay, lesbian, whatever the case is. They're going to encounter these individuals both in school, college, work, throughout their lives.
That's how I learned.
So it's something that it's just reality. So that's where I would say in terms of awareness, it starts young.
mean, you made a good point.
Yeah.
You truly did. Marcus nailed it on the, he made a good point. For example, for perspective, my nephew, he's 3 years old. I have a nephew, which love him to death. His parents actually just introduced to him the proper terminology for his anatomy. Hey, this is a penis, this is a vagina, right? And they taught him and they gave him knowledge and stuff like that. Yeah, so they
hands off your bebbles. And my grandson yelling at him all the
time. They got him on the hand and they boom, But my thing is, I think that is absolutely what needs to take some time. And I get it. And I get it. As parents, we are mama bear, papa bear. We are there to defend, fight, and protect our kids. Absolutely. And I'm a strong believer of that. I think it should be handled the same way as a heterosexual couple is handled, because I was taught when I was a child that having a mom and having a dad was the correct family dynamic, right? I was taught that. So I think in the same way we can teach as well that some kids might have different parents, might have a single mom, might have a single dad. There's a lot of different family dynamics. I think with sexual health, it takes a while. I think we have to be able to gauge the time when an individual, a child, can critically comprehend what is being said to them. And could that be when they're 5 years old? Could that be when they get into their teens? That's just dependent on the environment and the factors that the kids are growing up in. But we just have to be aware of when kids are able to think critically, because that's a huge point. Critical thinking. Yeah. Let them develop that understanding. You're not going to tell a kid that's 3 years old, hey, by the way, this is how babies are made. I don't think that's appropriate at that time. Personally, that's my opinion. I think that the time will come when those conversations can happen. Maybe more so around puberty, right? Because there is a transition in the body. But all this just has to be truly gauged by the experiences that kids are having within their own family dynamics. It's important, though, to teach sexual health, because I grew up in an environment where I had a creepy uncle and I wasn't taught certain parts of sexual health and anatomy. So I would think it's appropriate for my uncle to hug me a certain way, right? I'm not saying anything ever happened, because nothing did. But just that encounter of the way my uncle would hug me wasn't comfortable to me. I knew it wasn't comfortable, but I wasn't taught that. So I think that teaching kids,
how kids pick up on that. Yeah.
Right. Because I felt so uncomfortable, right? I was like, this does not feel good. But if I was taught, hey, no one should touch you below here. No one should touch you below here because that's your personal private area, right? That's your personal space. It's your body. It's your right. I think that that's important, though, to educate kids, because there are a lot of bad people out there. And, our kids are exposed to different environments, school, stores, family members. I went through that. The uncle's not here no more. He passed away. Bless his heart. But, he was creepy. And I think that would have saved me. Nothing ever happened, but it was just uncomfortable.
What about the movement of allowing kids to choose what they feel like they're leaning toward at such a young age? If you have a 5-year-old playing with Barbie dolls, 5-year-old kid, male boy playing with Barbie dolls, and a 5-year-old girl running up trees, I think that's a little early, to decide what your child's doing.
Yeah, I completely agree, because it happened to me. I told you, I was 5, 6, 7. I think my first actual probably attraction to any sort of gender wasn't until I was like 13, 14 years old, right? So I played with Barbies. My brothers played with cars. I also played with cars. Right. And my dad would tell me, no, you're supposed to play with cars, right? And I'm like, well, Dad, I don't know what I'm supposed to play with. I'm a kid. I want to play with my toys.
You don't care what it is.
I don't really care what the fuck the toys are. Yeah, just, let me play with my toys. So I think that but then again, it's the exposure, right? When I was a kid, there wasn't a lot of exposure to a lot of stuff that we see now. I mean, my siblings, my cousins, nephews, they have phones. They're like 6 years old. I'm like, what? How do you have a cell phone? So I guess it's just that exposure, right? They're exposed to a lot more than we were exposed to. And that's what makes it so hard now.
We're more progressive now too. Than your parents, my parents. Yeah.
Yeah, they've grown a lot. The parents have grown a lot, but just that example as a kid,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what am I supposed to know? I like playing with these things. I like playing with that. That's who I grew up, and I still love cars. I still love toys. I still, go to Disney, whatever the case is, right? But I just think, allowing your child or allowing just to be themselves and support them in the best way that you can support them. It truly just comes down to support someone for being who they want to be.
You know what I think is happening, and we could probably talk for another 2 or 3 hours because you guys are great putting up with my bullshit.
You're great, Jay. You're great. You're great. I don't care what anyone says. You're great.
Don't care what was written, on the dark web.
I went through all your reviews. I don't. I still listen to your show, man.
I mean,
no, you're great, Jay. We appreciate you.
Thanks for that. So you guys have brought up the blocking of transgender healthcare, and I looked that up, and God, there's a lot more states out there than I thought.
Yeah.
They kept on saying youth, right? So that kind of brings us back to sort of what we were talking about. If someone's actually going to, and it's probably more than just this, but if you're 13 or 14 and you want to take the hormones and go through a transition, should you really be able to, or should you be 18, 20, 22? I know I've been around people at work that have done that, gone through, and I know statistically there's no turning back, which can be a terrible thing, and a lot of times it does lead to suicide. But this is more than that. Can you kind of tell us, in a few minutes, kind of what this actually is, saying besides just a transition?
So it's as you well have referenced, Jay, it's a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
So a couple of things, kind of what comes to mind for me is that, first of all, I would say with youth, I know we talk a lot about youth and it's like, oh, what do we do? In the end, if someone is truly, for example, let's say you have a boy, a male, 13, 14, 15 years old, and they truly believe they are a female and want to be a female. When you deny someone their authentic self, there are huge implications in terms of mental health, in terms of self-esteem, right? Yep. So you're dealing with all of that. That is the reality. So kind of starting off, I guess I would say merely just denying a young person that opportunity, just flat out saying it's illegal, it's banned, no, you can't do it, really doesn't consider those implications. I think where I would like to see the conversation steered versus instead of saying yes or no, illegal or allow it, I would really like to see us more focus on the process of having someone that is underage go through that. What are the ideal, for example, from a counseling perspective, right? In terms of the medical perspective, what are the best practices or processes if we have a young person that feels as though they want to identify with a different gender? What's the healthiest, most appropriate way to approach that? I've noticed in the kind of the discourse, the political discussion of it, we don't get into that part of it. We just get into that's very superficial, yes or no.
Yeah.
And the kind of like my position before with in terms of LGBTQ individuals exist, we have to be aware of them and that we have to kind of coexist. In the same way, we are going to have individuals that are going to question their gender identity, possibly want to identify with the other gender than what they were at birth. That's going to happen. What is the most responsible, healthiest way for that individual, for society? Let's have the discussion there versus just simply yes or no and just kind of, having a blanket answer to it. That's kind of, I know it's not quite a perfect answer or definite answer, but I think honestly, that's where the conversation needs to be. But I think until we get people out of just don't allow it. No, they can't do it. Until we get out of that mindset, we're not going to be able to have that deeper conversation of really what's the right way to handle it.
Because what do we do when we're told we can't do something?
Right.
We find a way to do it.
Find a way, or you degrade because you can't be who you are, and your self-esteem and mental health just goes down the toilet, and that's not going to do anything.
And that's such a crazy age too,
Right.
Scientifically, our brains aren't where they should be. But I agree. I think there should be maybe a counseling period. Like, are you sure? Let's go to these, sessions with trained professionals to make sure this is what you really want to do.
Absolutely.
And you better be damn sure.
Absolutely.
Because
absolutely, yeah.
Denying outright
and really get into
seems
it.
Tough. Denying outright.
Yeah.
But we had an incident. And they don't listen to my podcast, but we were out, last weekend and we were celebrating a friend's, a very awesome achievement. And we were walking out of a club and I was kind of trailing. And by the time I came out, a friend of mine was going back and forth with the guy at the door. And I was like, I thought maybe they knew each other. Right. My friend had asked the doorman a question. Sounds like he asked him several times. The door guy wiped his eyes and flicked him off. And he was like, oh, okay, this might be something. And then the question was, are you wearing eyeliner? And the guy's like, no, I told you I'm not. And it's like, okay, why are we having this conversation? Wait, you don't know this guy? And that turned into a huge, huge fight between my friend and his wife. But he and I, we talked quite a bit that night. And those personality types are out there. And otherwise, he's a great person. But I didn't realize how strong he was in his stance against those things until that night. So he lost a few points, with me, but the thought is, he goes, that guy has eyeshadow on or mascara, whatever. Is it mascara? I think it's mascara, whatever. And I go, how do you know? Because I know. I said, why does it matter? Like, who fucking cares? It doesn't fucking matter. Like, we're sitting here talking about this for 20 minutes. He goes, it matters to me. I go, why does it matter to you? Right? Because I've gone on this huge tirade, before, not on the actual podcast, about people get angry about things that don't necessarily have anything to do with them. And that's the problem. That's the problem you guys are facing in your community. It's it's the fact that, but full circle before I go, because I can go on that rant for, 15, 20 minutes. He goes, well, my son, a few years ago, when he was 18, he was painting his nails. I go, okay. And I don't want my kid to be doing that. I go, okay, well, if you want to be that parent, that's up to you to be that parent, but you can't impose that on other people. Right. Like, you have no idea, what the situation is there. And then I told him, I go, dude, when I was 18 or 19, I was painting my nails too. This was in 1996. People looked at me like I was crazy. I started off with a dice, an old Jordan thing. And the next thing you know, all my nails are black.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm out there playing pick up basketball. And people are like, oh, I'm like, oh, would you be afraid of me? I'm going to dunk on you now. But, I'm as straight as they get. Right. But, that doesn't mean anything, and it's, that takes you back, to little boy playing with Barbie in the little pink truck, or the little girl. Because, almost every woman I know in my life at some point was a tomboy. Are they even allowed to be tomboys in 2023? Or are they declaring their sexuality when they crawl up a tree instead of putting on a dress? But, going back to people being upset about things, I think one of the things, because one of the questions that I didn't ask was about businesses taking a social stance or taking a stance on something, case in point, Anheuser-Busch with the Bud Light, right? People, not that Bud Light's any good. It's not the worst beer I've had, but.
Right. But that's the focus, right? The beer is not good.
Now
that should be the focus.
Yeah. Bud Light sales are terrible, like statistically. And so I say, I don't like that. I don't like that they came out in support of whatever, I don't even remember the name, something 3-syllable name, McLoney?
Dylan.
What was it called? Dylan. What'd you say, Dylan? Right.
Yeah.
It's like, who cares? Like, if that's what Anheuser-Busch wants to do, why does it hurt you? And I think the thought that people have is, I'll support it. Like, I support your guys, right, to be in the community, but don't make me feel like I have to do it or else I am anti this or anti that. And I think it's the disease that people don't like being told what to do or what to think. And so I think when more of these corporations come out and show support, people feel like they're being personally attacked. When at the end of the day, it really has nothing to do with them. And I don't know what the fix for that is. Does corporate America stay out of social issues? Well, I don't know. It's Ford making I call it the Kodak trucks. They made a special trucks dedicated to like the flag, right? The LGBTQ flag.
Yeah.
And people lost their
colors.
minds. It's like, how does that impact you? And, and no one wants to have that conversation. So
that's a great point, but I also like to give people the question. And I give even our listeners this question. And I ask them, okay, we're told by companies to take a stance on social issues, right? But as someone that comes from the gay community, I have watched for many years corporations take a stance on heterosexual issues. And, I don't have any backlash on that because it's just what it is, right? There comes a point though where I've always said this. If companies want to take a stance on social issues, they're a company. They have every right to do so. But put your money where your mouth is. If your organization supports the movement of a lot of stuff and if they support good movements, then donate to causes that support good movements. I don't want to see on June 1st your logo turn into a rainbow and then you're still donating to organizations that degrade, attack, and go against the LGBT community.
Fair.
Same thing with other organizations, right? If there's like an issue with racism or police brutality, for example, do companies take stance on those issues? Absolutely, but put your money where your mouth is. If you're going to make a stance, support organizations, individuals that do get there. And as consumers, we have every right. You don't want to support a business, you don't want to support an organization, that's fine. But if an organization supports a cause that helps improve life and helps to support life, that's fine. If an organization is supporting people killing dogs, then okay, well, that's different. They're causing harm, right? They're causing foul. They're being harmful towards. That's the deal breaker. Absolutely. Right. But if they're supporting, people being accepting and loving and understanding and supporting human rights, then damn, why is that so fucking hard to comprehend? But I get it. I get it. We have every right to do so. Bud Light sucks. The beer sucks.
Oh, it's awful. I hate it.
It's headache medicine.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. What? You're going to get in the Ford pickup truck and you're going to go, hey, sister, no. You're going to get in the Ford pickup truck and you're just going to drive a truck.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100% on that. Even with the Bud Light thing. What's funny, and I don't have the list in front of me, but I looked up all the other beers that Anheuser-Busch produces, and there's a lot of beers that people love. So it's like, if you're not going to buy the Bud Light, then guess what? You're not buying these other beers that you probably have, full of your freezer. So, but people, the blind lead the blind. No one ever researches anything. It's just popular to kind of go with the flow, I guess.
That's the issue right there. That's it. That's all it takes. Just give your time, get on the computer, find some resources, learn a little bit about stuff, and you'd be surprised to find out that a lot of these cases, a lot of these issues keep trickling down, and we just got to learn how to educate ourselves.
John, I told you before too, people also have major control issues in their life. People, we can go on end, right? The economy, whatever the case is, people feel out of control. These types of issues, like with Bud Light, when they say, I'm not going to buy it again, right?
Disney, by the way,
they don't
also
research it completely, just like you said.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not doing this. It gives them like a moment of control and power over themselves and their lives. Like, you see how people they get really enthusiastic when they say, I'm not going to do it. And it's like, over Bud Light.
But it
gives them that little moment of, I'm controlling myself and I have control, when in reality their lives are well out of control.
Did you know that company, the parent company of Bud Light, and like you said, that makes these beers,
Anheuser-Busch,
they have a lot of investment in stocks and certain, I don't know how it works, that involves the Florida state pension system.
Yes.
So the state of Florida is now having issues, and they sent a letter to this company saying, hey, your stocks are down, so they're affecting the funding and the viability of our state pension system. I mean, come on.
It's a moment of feeling a little control and power.
Yeah.
You're messing up your own pensions. You know? I don't know.
I know.
It's a complicated situation.
It really is.
Marcus and John, thank you so much for spending a good part of your afternoon with me. You guys have been great.
Of course.
Absolutely, Jay. It's always a pleasure.
You guys ever want to join? Let me know. We can get up here. Oh, really quick. What happened to your Civics? Like, one of you doesn't have a car anymore.
That's me. That's Marcus.
I bought a 2022 Honda Civic Sport.
Oh, good for you.
You know, I think it's
beautiful.
I think it's a great car, man. I'm not gonna lie. Compared to the Civic trims before, I think they did a really good refresh. It's a quality built car. I like the inside. I like the dynamics it has. I mean, I wish it had fog lights, but
he starts this. He has these moments where he starts to shit about, I should have gotten this. I should have gotten that. It's a beautiful car.
I wanted a Civic Type R. I did.
The color is his rims. You have black rims, right? They're rims.
Yeah, but for a sport trim,
they're beautiful.
It's pretty good.
He did the black tint. The car looks incredible.
Marcus, was yours the one that was shitty?
I'm sorry.
I knew one of you had a nice one, and one of you had kind of a like the starter version of it or whatever.
Yeah, he had the starter version.
Yeah, he's always, this guy has always been a little fancy.
Marcus will make a right turn, his left hubcap fly.
Oh, shut up. It didn't do that. But he had, what was your 2014, what you had before was a
2014 Honda Civic. I ran that.
What was it? It was a
EX.
Yeah. See, I always went with the LX. Yeah. I was cheap. I'm cheap. So he's always had the nicer car.
Why do car companies keep doing this? Get us an answer, Jay. I don't understand it. All these trims, it pisses me off.
I'll work on it.
Just make,
please do. Yeah.
Make 3. I can do 3 trims.
Deal. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Jay. You. Have a great day.
If you guys found that conversation enjoyable, please subscribe, like, and comment below on anything that you have. And to hear the full episode, subscribe to me at Hard Parking with Jhae Pfenning. Go to hardparkingpod.com or find me on any podcast platform. And I'll check you guys out next time. The Hard Parking Podcast, a little bit of cars and so much more, available anywhere you get your podcast, or check it out at hardparkingpod.com.